Be'ezras Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Menachos Daf Tzadik Daled, and we will begin from Daf Tzadik Gimel Amid Beis, from the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, the bottom of Tzadik Gimel Amid Beis, the Mishnah just lists off Choyme B'Smicha Mi B'Tnufa. We're talking about two different things. One is smicha, as you can see in the picture, the smicha on the animal, where you put your two hands on the animal, and then there's something called waving. You wave sometimes the fat and the breast and the shoik of the animal, and you know what? You also wave sometimes, as you can see in this picture. The guy, the kohen, is waving the two breads, the two showbreads, with the two live animals inside the showbread, inside the shtei halechem. It's called shtei halechem. So sometimes the shtei halechem was these two breads, on Shavuos they waved them together. So now the Mishnah lists off the stringencies of one over the other. Smicha has a stringency over tnufa, over waving. And tnufa has a stringency over smicha. Why? If it's a partnership, if let's say 10 guys chipped in for a carbon, so then they can have one do the tnufa on behalf of the others. But if a few guys chipped in for a carbon, each one of them has to do the smicha. You can't do one on behalf of all of them. They each one have to get up to the animal and do the smicha. But tnufa is more stringent. Why? Tnufa neheges bekarbon is yachar bekarbon sibar. Tnufa, which is noyeg, which happens sometimes in an individual carbon and a communal carbon. B'chayim, the more important thing is that b'chayim, whether the animal is alive, sometimes you wave the live animal, like you saw in the picture by the sheep. You wave the live sheep on Shavuos, uvashchutin, and sometimes you wave the slaughtered animal, the slaughtered parts of the animal, and uvadavash yesh by ruach hayim, something that is alive, uvadavash ein by ruach hayim, and something that was never alive. You see, by the oimer, right? The oimer, which was the flour offering that was brought on the first day of Pesach, right after the first day, they waved it. You see in the picture over here, the kohen is waving the pan back and forth, up and down, like a lulav. So that is an idea that applies only by tenufa, because it could be on something that's just inanimate object like flour. Mashenkin smicha is only something that was alive, like an animal, Sometimes. Only a live animal generally has smicha. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught karbonoi. We saw this pasuk karbonoi. Karbonoi means that the Torah tells you the samach yadai al roish karbonoi, or im eis karbonoi. The Torah says lo rabbis kol bale carbon l'smicha. The Torah is telling you that every owner of the carbon has to do the smicha. It's not like you can send one of the partners do the smicha on behalf of all of them. They all have to be present and do the smicha. Shiochel, I would have thought, like dinu, it's a kal v'choyme that one should be able to do it on behalf of the others, because tnufa sinisrapsa b'shchutem, that tnufa has a stringency that it applies even by the slaughtered animals. Sometimes you wave the slaughtered parts of the animal. Despite that, one could do the waving on behalf of all of them, of all partners. So smicha, which does not happen by slaughtered animals, smicha is only done by a live animal. I would have thought certainly that it should be limited, that one partner can do it on behalf of all the partners. They could do the smicha on behalf of all the partners. Talmud Bavli, that's why the pasuk says karbonoi, that if you're the owner of the carbon, l'rabbis kol bali carbon l'smicha, that pasuk includes every owner of the carbon is required to do the smicha. Says the Gemara, v'tisrab. Okay, now the Gemara goes reverse. So now, if smicha needs everybody to do the smicha, You can't say one partner does it on behalf of all of them. So then let's do it the opposite way. Let's make a kal v'chomer and say that the waving has to be done by every single partner. Why? Because smicha does not apply by slaughtered animals. Nevertheless, all partners have to do the smicha. So tnufa, which is more stricter, which sometimes you do waving the tnufa by slaughtered animals. Certainly so certainly it should be that all partners have to do the waving. So how is it that, well, we don't say that. We say only one partner does the waving and not all the partners have to do the waving. Says the Gemara, the reason is a practical reason. It's impossible for every partner to do the waving. The waving was done, let's say the kohen held and the owner held the animal parts together, right? So if you have so many partners, they're going to be, each partner is going to be underneath somebody else's hand. Let's say you have 10 partners in a carbon. So then how are you going to do the waving at one shot? How should they do the waving if you have many partners? Everybody should wave the parts of the animal together with the kohen, then that is going to be a chatzitza. Leinif, let them do tnufa, and then everybody does the tnufa, and then give it to his next partner to do the tnufa. Well, tnufa, Amar Rachmana, but like tnufa is tnufa. The Torah tells it do one time. You're not supposed to do it many times. So, for practical reasons, by the waving of the parts of the animal, only one does it on behalf of all the partners, because it was impossible to have all the partners wave at the same time. And the truth is that the waving is part of the carbon, is a din in the carbon. It's what makes the carbon. It's halacha that originates because it's a carbon. Smicha doesn't emanate because of the carbon, it emanates because of the owner. And therefore, smicha doesn't have to be done at one time. You could have 20 owners of a carbon and they'll do smicha each one separately, and that's okay. So that's the difference between smicha and tenufa. Smicha was done by all the partners. Tenufa was done by one partner on behalf of everybody. Says the Gemara, smicha b'shchuta leisa. There was no such a thing of smicha by a slaughtered animal. You don't put your hands onto a slaughtered animal. Well, let's say we know that we have a mizbeach, right? The mizbeach, here's the kohen going up and throwing things up on the mizbeach. So the Mishnah says that, well, now we learned in the Mishnah, bizman shekohen gadol writes lahakter. If the kohen gadol wants to throw things onto the mizbeach, he wants the privilege of throwing let's say the carbon tamid onto the mizbeach, onto the fire. So he was an old man. He would start walking up the ramp, and his helper was on the right side, a substitute. When he reached at least half of the ramp, the helper held on to the right side of the kohen gadol and sort of like brought him up the ramp because it was too steep for the kohen gadol to get up there. Then listen to this. Another kohen, the first kohen, would give him harosh v'haregel, the head and the foot of the sheep of the carbon tamid. He would put his two hands on the head and the feet, and then v'zarkin, then threw it on the mizbeach. Notice he's doing smicha on a dead animal, on the dead parts of an animal, and that's the question. And then the second kohen gave it to the first kohen, shtei yadayim, gave him the two hands of the animal. Noisin the kohen gadol, he would give it to the kohen gadol. He would put two his hands on it, and then v'zarkin, and throw it onto mizbeach. Nishmat hasheni v'halaloi v'kachoi mashitoloi sha'ar kol heivarim. And that's how they brought to the kohen gadol, who was standing on top of the mizbeach, ready to throw things into the fire. He was standing on the top of the mizbeach and basically at the edge of the ramp to throw it into the fire, right? As you can see the kohen doing that over here. And everybody would give him a piece of the carbon, and he had the privilege to throw it into the fire, but he would place his hands on on the dead parts of the animal, and then take it and throw it into the fire. Uzman Shuhu writes it, but if he if it was too much to throw these dead, heavy pieces of the animal into the fire, who saimech, he would just do the smicha. He would just lean his hands, v'acherim zarkin, and other people would throw it into the fire. So what do you see from here? You see from here that the kohen does smicha on something that was slaughtered, that's dead. And you told me smicha is only done on a live animal. Answers the Gemara, Amar Abaya, Hasa Mishum Kvoided the Kohen Gadol. It was just an extra, it wasn't the halacha. It's just to show the Kohen Gadol likes to bless things. So it was for the honor of the Kohen Gadol that we allow him just like to bless the animal before it gets thrown onto the Mizbeach. But it's not a din smicha, and it's not something that had to be done. So Hadon Allah Shtei Midos. We finished the parak, and now we begin the 11th parak. Shtei halechem, the two showbreads, which we had a picture over here of the two showbreads. So the Mishnah is say, how are they baked? Today is a bakery lesson. Shtei halechem niloishes achas achas. They kneaded it one at a time because they each had to have in Isaron about 5 pounds of flour for each of the breads. And they baked them achas achas, one by one in the oven. Lechem upon them. The 12 showbreads on the shulchan, so niloishes achas achas, they each was kneaded one by one. V'nefesh shtayim, but they were baked two at a time. Two at a time they baked it, and so they baked it two at a time, but they were kneaded one at a time. It says the Mishnah, udefus hayoisen, and shtei lechem had to have a certain shape. So the shape was. They had a shape when they needed it, and and then when they took it out of the oven, in the oven also there was a shape, a form, a mold, and they would take it out and put it into another mold so it didn't get ruined, because the shape of the you see the shapes of these. I'm going to show you a picture. The shape of this lechem upon had a funny shape, like this shape, like a block shape. Let's get a nice picture, like a block shape. You see, according to one opinion. Interestingly enough, it was like matzah. So it's thick, right? It looks thick, but if you don't have a mold there, it'll fall apart during the week that it was on the table. So they took it out of the oven and into a mold. They kneaded it into a mold, and then when it was in the oven, it also had a mold. As we're going to learn, that's what they say. It had a mold on the outside, and sometimes when they put it in the oven, if you notice how the Middle Eastern ovens was, they baked on the wall of the oven, right? They stuck things on the wall. So they put another type of mold into the inside of the, not on the outside, but on the inside of the dough. So it baked and formed like a U shaped. So let's see the Gemara. How do we know that the shtei halechem was kneaded separately? The Tanur Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, shnei esroinim yia achala ha'echas. Each chala had to be 2 esroinim, and therefore. And this pasuk is talking about the shtei halechem, the lechem upon him. Here it says, it's a pasuk in the end of Parsha Emor. It says you take dough, bake it into 12 loaves, as you see, shnei esroinim yachalachas, about 10 pounds each chala. So he'achas is extra. So we darshan that they had to be kneaded separately. How do we know that the shtei halechem was also kneaded? This pasuk is only by the lechem upon him. How do we know the shtei halechem was kneaded at one at a time? Talmud Bavli. That's what the pasuk tells you, that not only was the lechem upon him kneaded one at a time, but the shtei halechem was also kneaded one at a time. And how do I know that you bake the lechem upon them 2 at a time in the oven. Talmud Loimer, the pasuk says, "V'samta oisam," you place them. The first placement was after you knead them into the dough, and it says place them plurally. So therefore, both the breads, you take 2 breads at a time and you put them in the oven. I would think that the shtei alechem was baked each one both at a time. Talmud Loimer oisam. The pasuk says oisam. Oisam means only the lechem upon him was baked 2 at a time, but the shtei lechem was baked 1 at a time. You didn't have both in the oven at the same time. Says the Gemara, oisam ha'apikte. Didn't you use oisam to teach you something else? You used oisam to teach you that it's shtayim, that you bake them 2 at a time. But how do you know to use oisam to limit that only the lechem upon him is baked 2 at a time and not the shtei lechem? So the Gemara says, "In came lema krav v'sam tom." The pasuk could have said, "Place them into the oven," or something like that. My v'samta oisam, place oisam them. It's like an expanded way to say that same idea. Shamet minay tartu. We see 2 ideas. Number one, that the lechem upon him was baked in the oven 2 at a time. And the other thing you see from it is that only the lechem upon him was baked 2 at a time, but the shtei alechem was nefas achas, 1 at a time. Tanur Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, besamta oisem betvus. You put them, the lechem upon him, into the shamta oisem, you put them into a mold. So the Brisa says, shloisha defusim heim. There were 3 molds. Noislim levtfus. Let's say they put it into a regular square mold. Okay, so we'll have the picture up over here. The square mold will be this one on the right. Okay, the square mold. Then the Brisa says, "Vadayin hi botzik." Then it was still a piece of dough. Ukudmun tefus hayalabatana, and they had a similar and opposite type of mold in the oven, because when they baked it in the oven, they used the inner mold. This one, when I'm circling over here, because the oven, they baked it upside down, let's say, and they put the mold over here, like I just drew it very badly, but basically square. So it expanded, but it kept the shape of the U shape. Then when they took it out of the oven, right? When they took it out of the oven, they put it, when they took it out of the oven, they put it into a third form, so it shouldn't fall apart. They wanted to keep that U shape, and therefore the wall should not fall in or fall outwards. Says the Gemara, why did they need 3 separate molds? Go back to the original mold that you made, you shaped it as a dough. Why don't you use that first one? Answers the Gemara, since it baked, it blew up, so it would not fit in the original mold. They had to have another mold for taking it out of the oven. That's why they had 3 molds to make this lechem upon it. Now we get a little bakery lesson, and very important, because you need the pictures over here. Itmar, we learned lechem upon him, the 12 showbreads. Ketzad oisin oisa. How were they made? So we have a machlokes. Rab Chanina says, Kamein Teva Prutza. That's what we're familiar. It looked like an open box. In other words, like a box that's open from the top and both sides. Rabbi Yochanan says, Kavin Sfina Reikadis, like a rocking boat. So if we take a look at the pictures, here is a drawing from the Pirush Chai. Here's the familiar Kamin Teva Prutza, like an open box. It's open from this side and that side. And according to it looked like a boat. According to the other opinion, it looked like a boat. Came to a point. It looked like a paper boat, basically. Here, this is the way they have it in the Oizva Hadar. They have it, the picture like this, a rocking boat that came to a point over here. So, and the Gemara is going to ask questions now. How could it be in this shape, with that shape? The Gemara is going to now ask question on either. Rabbi Chanina said, back into the Gemara, Chanina says it was an open box. Rabbi Yochanan says it was a rocking boat. Says the Gemara, Bishlam Amandi Oma Kimin Teveva Perutza Haina Diyasu Bezicha. If you're going to tell me that it was an open box, they used to put the 2 spoons of lavoina of besamim on top, let's say on the top bread of the showbread, so it could easily stay there. How? How could it stay there? So the answer is, look at the picture over here. You put the spoons on top. But if it was like pointy, right, and it had pointed edge, so where did you put the spoons exactly? That's the Gemara's question. So answers the Gemara, they made a ledge in one of the breads, maybe the top bread or whatever. It had like a little ledge where you could actually put the two spoons over here. You could put the two spoons over here instead. So that's why you could learn that it was that way. Let's see if I have a picture. Let's see. You see here, this guy over here, they had an illustration where a person baked the breads to look like the two machlokes. One held the breads look this way, and one held if it came onto a point. So if it came to a point, the question was, where do you put the bezichim, the spoons? It'll fall off. So the other answer is that it had like a little ledge over here to put the spoons. That's what the Gemara says. So according to the opinion, it was a rocking boat, and it came to a point. Where did the bezichen, the spoons, lean on? And for the Gemara, they made a special place for it in the bread. So as the Gemara says, Bishlam mandiyama come into Beva Perutza, Hainu the Yasri Kanim. El mandiyama kevin svina roikedes, Kanim hecha have Yasri. The Gemara's question is that since you have to put, they put a little, let's say, long sticks on top of each bread. So if it was shaped like a square, like a teva, so that's easy to put these sticks between each bread. They're not going to roll off because they're on a flat surface. But over here, if it was made like a point on the second picture, if it was made like a point, where are you going to put the two ends? They're going to just like roll off or something like that. So how did it stay if you put three sticks? And the Gemara is going to answer, Rasha Hava Avdil. They made the edges a little thicker, so to keep the roll, and you could able to put a stick over here and a stick over in the middle and a stick on the side, and it didn't roll off. That's how it worked. That's Gemara says. Bishlam the come in Teva Perutza, Hainu the Yafsikonim. Then I can see the sticks where they put the sticks. Ella Lamandiyama Kamin Savina Rekades, according to the opinion that it was a rocking boat, Konim Hecha Aviyasri. Where did they put those sticks? Answers the Gemara, my Rasha of the Avidluhu. They made like the edges thicker, and because of that, therefore, they were able to put the sticks and it wouldn't fall off. Now, there was side posts. The Gemara's question is, right now, they had side posts that held up. Here's the sticks, and let's see if I have. Yeah, so the Gemara's question is here. You see, they're going to be side posts. So if there was side posts, the Gemara's question is, I understand very well if it was shaped like a U, right? If it was shaped like a U, then the side post held up the side of the wall of the bread. But if it was shaped like a V, it could still tip over. You see, it could still tip over and fall off the table. So how did they keep that in place? So the Gemara is going to answer, they put a ledge over here. They put like a ledge. Here's a picture of it. Let me see if I have a picture. No, they put okay. They put a ledge that blocked it from coming. Let me see if I have it. Yes. They put like a ledge. It was like an angled ledge that helped it from falling over. That's what the Gemara is going to say. So let's read it. Bishlam Lamandi Amar Bandi Amar came in Tveva Perut, so that it was an open boat. That's why the side post can hold it up. At Lalechem. How did the side post hold up the bread? Answers the Gemara, the agale me agal. They angled it a little bit like a little piece of the wall of the side post came off on an angle like this, and the bread was held up. So the Gemara asks another question. If you're going to say that it was shaped like a V, Hainu to be eaten snifim. That's why I need these walls, because otherwise these breads would tip over. It was like a square box. Snifim lamali. What do you need these? What do you need these side posts to hold it up? You could actually shape the bread so simple. You could just have them like here in this picture on the left. You could have just the breads line up one on top of another. So the Gemara is going to answer, no, the reason why they had these side walls was because the breads are so heavy, they're going to crush each other, and they'll crush all the way down. That's what the Gemara says. So you need a side wall just to hold them in place. So the Gemara says, that's right. Agav yukr de lechem, because of the heaviness of the bread, it's going to crush, it is going to come down. So both of them needed a side wall. Says the Gemara, another minute. If you're going to learn that it was shaped like a V, the side post was actually on the table because the shape of the bread was like a V, and somehow the bread didn't take up the entire table, so you can put the side post on top of the table. Imagine a table, and off a little bit off the ledge of the table, you're going to put the side post. But if you tell me that the bread was shaped like a box, like a U, and it took up the whole table, where did you put the side post? Where did you put the side posts? Answers the Gemara, they put it on this, it was leaning on the floor. As you can see in these pictures, the famous pictures of the Shulchan is that you have the side post that was on the floor, not on top of the table. And so, and yes, the Amar Rabba Babam said, if you're going to hold that it was a rocking boat, then the side post was actually on the table. But if you're going to learn that it was a box, it took up the entire table. The side post was actually on the ground. One more minute. Who is Rabbi Yehuda? Whose opinion is Rabbi Yehuda aligning with? The bread would hold up the side post, and the side post would hold up the bread. In other words, they all held up to each other. That means the side post held the bread together, and the bread allowed the side post to be held up. It wasn't on the floor. So who is Rabbi opinion of Rabbi Yehuda? Commander Amma Kamin Safina Rekades. Rabbi Yehuda was aligning himself with the opinion that it was like a V, like a rocking boat, and that's what all these pictures on the may either look like a U or a V. Okay, we'll stop right over here.
Thank you.